having a really hard time. Not necessarily like a hard time, but as far as like just listening and being still, because it's like this week was more so spiritually transformative than anything, and in all aspects of my life. So in the group chat, the Artist Way chat, in the church, I feel like everything has just been like syncing up, aligning, and as well as in my personal life. But also, I was very frustrated this week. I really had to sit with God and ask, like, what the heck am I doing? Or what am I supposed to be doing? Like, what should I be doing in the time of waiting? What should I be praying about? What should I, like, I just needed some guidance and some, I guess, refocus in this tunnel vision that I feel like I've been in by myself. And I had to reintroduce myself to God. I had to deconstruct what I feel like our relationship was my entire life. So I'm 28, and I feel like I've had a very toxic relationship with God because of how I was raised in the church. And I have a very toxic, not necessarily toxic, but I have a lot of PTSD from second-wave Christians in the church, because the way I was taught is you have to talk to God a certain way, you have to do it in a certain manner, versus now that I know that I can talk to God, how I can talk to God, like how I talk to my friends and be myself. Because when you're praying, it's a passed down prayer. Even in the Bible, the Lord's Prayer is a guideline. It's like the blueprint to a prayer, not necessarily like the prayer you should be praying all the time, because God wants you to come to Him and talk to Him how you should talk to Him. And then learning all of these things, I was frustrated, because it's like, all right, now what? Like, now what do you want me to do? Like, how can I fix these relationships? So I had to ask God for forgiveness. I had to cuss God out at the same time, but also reintroduce myself and ask God to be my friend and welcome God into my space in a totally different way that I didn't expect to, or I thought I already did. But I really had to ask myself the hardest questions. Like, even in the book of The Artist Way, the question was, the reason I can't believe I don't have a supportive God, or like something like that. And I avoided the question. I believe I was in like week 5. I avoided the question because I'm like, oh, I'm not answering that. Even in parentheses, she put, oh, God can handle it. I'm just like, yeah. And I know God already knows it, but like I still didn't want to do it. So I went back and answered those questions. And it was like, wow, it kind of opened up my eyes to, you really have a toxic relationship with God just off the strength of like what you learn from your mom, what you learn from everybody else, like older people, in the church. And like I said, how they would tell you to talk to them, or I would only see people talking to God when they were going through something. So I would only do it when I was going through something. Or it felt like very one-sided, where it's like, all right, God, I'm going through this, or I need this, and I need to talk to you, and I need your help. But it's like, I'm not going to God about the good things. I'm not going to God just cause. Versus now, where I talk to God literally throughout my days all the time. And it's been like that for a while. But I've still had the desire to deepen my relationship, and that's what I pray for. So this week was just more transformative spiritually and mentally, because I randomly was just journaling in all of my notebooks, my morning pages, and I'm like, you need to pray. You need to talk to God. You gotta know what you need to pray. And I sat there and I'm just writing, jotting. That turned into like almost 2 hours. And then it also turned into a screaming match. And then it also turned into me crying. And definitely something that I needed and didn't expect that I needed. But now I'm kind of in the area of what's next. And just asking God, what should I be doing in this time of waiting and in the time of expectancy? Because of course I'm still going to expect the best things. I'm going to expect great things. I'm going to expect doors to be open, and I'm going to expect God to show me how unlimited He is and how I have access to all these unlimited resources. But at the same time, I'm still like, so just praying away the worrisome heart and the worrisome nervous system and the stressful nervous system that I've inherited from my mom and probably her mom and all that. And really started from ground zero, which is scary, because it's like, okay, I've been telling myself I've had this relationship with God, and I've been getting further into my spiritual walk with God, but it just wasn't deep enough for me. I'm like, I just needed more. So I know one of my prayers was answered because in our church group, we are expanding it. And at first, I didn't really want to expand it. I'm like, okay, I'm okay with my little church group. Obviously, I don't mind the word being spread around, but at the same time, it just started to feel like a school event, like almost like an organization. And I'm just like, okay, here we go. I don't want to have to reintroduce myself and all this, but it's like, that's me having to work through my PTSD from Christians, or my PTSD from just people who follow God in a different way. Also very intimidating because I feel like a lot of people already know how to pray in the best way, or already, know Bible scriptures more than I do, which is fine because everything is a learning process. It's the whole point. It's a learning. You're on a journey and it's not a competition. So just praying away like the intimidation and welcoming in the new family members in the group and the word. So I've been reading a lot of John lately, John, Matthew, and Luke for the Gospels, since we're reading it with our church. And now I've started reading Genesis with our church, with our small group. But I think John is my favorite Bible book so far, because when I was looking back through my book, it was just, I don't know, it just kind of made sense. A lot of the passages that I have read are from John, and I feel like that's a lot. That book specifically is where I take my most notes and like highlight the most stuff. So I'm like, okay, I think John might be my favorite. So I have a few favorite scriptures, not specifically just from John, but just in general. But yeah, this week was more spiritual transformation, mental transformation than anything. It was a great week, don't get me wrong, but it was just like, whoa, my eyes opened a lot bigger than what I could see. And even during our recap, we stayed on the phone for almost 3 hours, just talking, being vulnerable, crying, like, which I didn't expect, but I kind of should have expected it, especially when you're asking a question about God, because I literally just asked the same thing. I was just like, did anybody else answer this question, or did anybody else skip this question, due to resistance or, fear that you didn't want to talk to God like this, or you didn't want to, tell God why you didn't feel like God supported you. And a lot of people agree. But that's also another synchronicity as well, just randomly talking about God with strangers, with my Uber drivers, with people I work with. So that's a lot to take in at once, but overall cool. So now I'm just kind of in the period of what's next. What do I need to be doing? What do I need to be doing in the waiting time? How can I keep improving? How can I keep going, moving forward, you know what I'm saying? And working through my resistance and working through the nerves and the nervous system being overwhelmed and stressed out. So yeah, I have to set an appointment with my therapist this month, since we do a check-in every 3 months now instead of like monthly, which is fine because that makes more sense to me. And I feel like I have so much shit to tell her. So week 6 was cool. Week 6 was cool. The activities were cool. They made you feel silly because they're more like interactive, as far as like go outside and pick up 5 rocks, go outside and pick out 5 flowers. I didn't do the rocks, but I did pick out 5 flowers, and they're really nice. I got through 80% of all of the tasks, and yeah, I learned a lot about myself. I feel like literally this week I have 4 notebooks. I probably was writing a lot this week, like probably a couple hours a day, and I'm like, okay, you just super yapper. But yeah, excited going into week 7. I wouldn't even call it like excitement or like non-excitement, but I'm just overall curious as to how this will continue to go and how much further I will continue to grow and allow myself to grow and allow myself to be open and working through these resistance. And yeah. It's even growth within the knowing and admitting that I had resistance to certain things pertaining to God and around God, because I feel like we center so much around God, not ourselves, we center so much around God, and we put so many like stipulations and walls up when it comes to what you can and can't do with God, or how you can and cannot talk to God. And honestly, I had to throw that shit out the window. Like I said, I had to reintroduce myself to God, ask God to be my friend, welcome God in, and understand that this is the whole point. You're supposed to know God on a level that you should know Him. It doesn't matter what it looks like to the outside world. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing on the outside world, because your relationship with God is your relationship with God. Your relationship with the Spirit is yours. So, I'm excited. It's a little nerve-wracking, but I am excited. I just keep praying that God continues to push me, continue to keep me focused, continue to keep me, not even necessarily locked in, but to continue to keep me focused on what I have promised myself and what I have told myself that I'm going to do to continue to be a better person and be the best version of myself. Not necessarily like hyper fixating on healing anymore and self-improvement anymore. I just rather self-develop and take it day by day and go like that, because I will get fixated on the healing journey and trying to fix so much shit that I feel like it's just going to happen over time. Like, I feel like you can also just get stuck in that type of loop, which is unhealthy, because you miss out on a lot of life and opportunity trying to just be like, well, I'm not prepared yet, or I'm not ready, or I'm staying away, no, you don't have to hide under a rock. And this is just me talking to me, but like, you don't have to hide yourself under a rock because you feel underdeveloped, when we're continuously and constantly changing and developing ourselves daily. So getting out of that mindset and giving myself a lot more grace than I've been lying to myself about. But yeah, also being more patient. I feel like I don't have a lot of patience with myself, and I need to allot that time that I give to other people to myself, because I feel like I'll be more patient with someone else versus myself. And yeah, it all goes back to me just putting more attention and focus on myself, but like in the best, healthiest way possible, and going from there. So that's where my head is right now. Week 6, leaving week 6. Cheers to week 7.